After months of political turmoil in Mali, last August, a military coup ended a tumultuous rule of Ibrahim Boubacar Keita. A dejected Keita appeared on the country's national television after being forced to resign as Malian president by mutinous troops. This is what he had to say.
Vous dire ma décision de quitter mes fonctions, toutes mes fonctions à partir de ce moment.
Hello, I'm Mubarak Kenya, and welcome to this week's edition of Africa Today, which is focusing on the situation in Mali after the coup and how the military plans to hand over power back to civilians.
And I am Sheila Nelima. This week we are highlighting a success story in Africa, the eradication of wild polio. Taking a break from COVID-19 updates, the World Health Organization director announced this positive development to the world. Let's take a listen.
Today, we come together to rejoice over an historic public health success, the certification of wild polio virus eradication in the African region.
In our news section, we have more positive news in store for you from across Africa.
And don't miss out on your social media comments before the end of our show. Stay with us till the end.
Mali after the coup. Mali had been hit by anti-government protests for several months, with the opposition calling for the resignation of President Ibrahim Boubacar over corruption, grinding poverty, bad governance, and failure to restore security in this fragile West African state. The country's military intervened and detained President Keita. He was later forced to resign to pave way for a bloodless military coup. Keita appeared on national television to declare the end of his rule.
Vous dire ma décision de quitter mes fonctions, toutes mes fonctions à partir de ce moment. Et avec toutes les conséquences de droit, la dissolution de l'Assemblée nationale et celle du gouvernement. Qu'Allah aide et bénisse le Mali.
After Keita's resignation, Assimi Goïta, a Malian military officer, declared that he was the interim leader of the country.
Je suis le colonel Assimi Goïta, le président du Comité national pour le salut du peuple. Donc nous, en faisant cette intervention hier, nous avons mis le pays au-dessus.
Influential Malian Muslim cleric and opposition movement leader Mahmoud Dicko thanked the military junta which ousted the country's president from power.
De nos enfants porteurs uniformes, les remercier pour l'œuvre qu'ils ont eu à accomplir.
The military mutiny in Mali was preceded by months of protests calling for the president's resignation. So when the military took over, many Malians rejoiced and voiced support for the coup, which had forced President Keita to resign.
Je suis là également, comme tout Malien ici présent, pour manifester pourquoi pas ma joie, et la joie de voir aujourd'hui cette libération du peuple malien qui était vraiment sincèrement très fatigué, qui avait soif d'une certaine liberté.
Mali's military junta has agreed to an 18-month transition government led by a military or civilian leader that would pave the way to elections.
Now, for an incisive analysis on the events in Mali, we are joined by Julius Mbaluto, a broadcast journalist and an African affairs analyst. Thanks a lot, Mr. Mbaluto, for your time. Now, our first question, what were the factors that contributed to the success of the military coup in Mali?
Well, the Mali experience of long term of instability was a key cause for the coup to succeed, because without stability, it meant the country was not holding together. The legitimacy of the President Keita was also a key issue, because corruption and also the issue of him being in power in an illegitimate means, or what people were talking about, they didn't like the way he came into power, and also tampering with elections as well was also a key issue.
Thanks for that, Julius Mbaluto, African affairs analyst.
The Regional Bloc Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, issued a deadline for the coup leaders to appoint a civilian president and a prime minister. Some opposition members in Mali were unhappy with the intervention by ECOWAS, which is seen as having backed the ousted president.
Le débat entre les chefs d'État de la CEDEAO a eu lieu. Vous connaissez déjà le résultat. Ils veulent venir, ils viendront, mais nous pas bouger.
A three-day national consultation took place in Mali as its military rulers raced to avoid more ECOWAS sanctions. The political crisis deepened when the opposition rejected the junta-backed post-coup charter. Mid-September, ECOWAS leaders met with Mali's military junta in Ghana's capital Accra to find a definitive solution to the political situation in the country. Speaking after the talks, President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana, the acting ECOWAS chair, said they did not reach any agreement with the military junta. Regional leaders fear the coup could set a dangerous precedent in West Africa and undermine a fight in Mali and neighboring countries. ECOWAS says it will only lift sanctions imposed on Mali once the military junta hands over power to civilian leaders.
But the minute that leadership is put in place, through the processes that they themselves have agreed on in Mali, the sanctions that have been placed against Mali will be lifted by ECOWAS.
The military junta says they have already made concessions and the ECOWAS sanctions imposed on the country should be lifted.
With the concessions we made, we asked that the sanctions ECOWAS imposed on Mali should be eased or lifted entirely. What matters for us is the population doesn't suffer.
How are ECOWAS sanctions impacting Mali's economy? And have they been an effective tool against the military leaders in Mali?
ECOWAS sanctions have been very important in this fight against coup in Mali, because we see the very first thing that ECOWAS did was immediately the coup succeeded. ECOWAS immediately applied sanctions. Number one, it stopped the flow of income and trade between Mali and the rest of the country members of the ECOWAS economic bloc. And that alone was very important weapon to use, because it is just ECOWAS is on the ground. That's where these things are happening. And also, ECOWAS seems to be an authority to respect.
Insecurity was one of the major factors that led to the coup in Mali. France has 5,000 troops operating in several regional countries, including Mali.
Additionally, the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Mali comprises of over 13,000 troops and nearly 2,000 police officers. This clearly indicates that the multinational forces in Mali have failed in their mandate of restoring peace.
Last February, Mali's ambassador to France, Toumani Jime Diallo, complained of the rowdy behavior by French troops stationed in his country to ostensibly combat insurgents.
There are certain elements that are not desirable, some elements of the army, because we see it all. We see tattoos all over, and we don't know what they are doing on the streets of Bamako at night. And it's not good for the image of France.
Now, Mr. Mbaluto, French troops and UN peacekeeping forces have been in Mali for many years. Why have they failed to restore peace and security in this country?
The problem has always been, as we have seen, emergency of different military bases being put in different countries across Africa. But these military bases, they are not there to fight terror per se. These military bases are there to front other economic interests of the countries of origin where they come from, if from US or France or any other Western nation. They are there to front that. They are there also for these countries, superpowers, to exact their authority to see, oh, fine, we are superpower. We have our foot on the ground almost in every other country in the world. And that has been the key problem.
Well, as our guest has put it clearly there, resources are a major attraction to foreign powers with troops in Africa. Mali is a country with vast natural resources, including rich deposits of gold and uranium.
This country is actually Africa's third largest gold producer after South Africa and Ghana. Could the scramble for these resources by Western countries be the source of Mali's instability?
Mr. Mbaluto, back to you. Now, can you elaborate further on the destabilizing role of Western countries with troops or military advisors in Mali and other countries in Africa?
We have a situation like Democratic Republic of Congo, if I may use that as an example, with the presence of MONUC forces, which are United Nations forces. We saw immense corruption by the United Nations peacekeeping force, even to the trading with minerals. United Nations vehicles being used to transport minerals. How worse can it get? So when we look at the countries that are in any part of conflict, we see there are resources. And also you have all these superpowers who have a big appetite since time immemorial. You know, since that has always been a factor. And that's why probably they will never achieve security if they don't focus on security and peace. If they don't focus to uplift these nations and sincerely say they are helping when they are helping, then this war will never end.
And now it's that time in our program where we bring you news and events from across Africa. Over to you, Sheila. What do you have for us in store today?
Thank you, Henia. This week we touch on Zambia, Niger, but you have to stick around to know it all. Now, to begin, the last remains of the slain hero Patrice Lumumba are headed home. A Belgian court ruled that the tooth of Congo's first prime minister could be returned to his native home. The leader's corpse was destroyed, but allegedly a tooth was pulled out and kept by a policeman who moved it from Congo to Belgium. Now, onto the environment. Demonstrations have continued in Mauritius. The protests have called for the resignation of Prime Minister Pravin and his government over mishandling of the oil spill that was caused by the Japanese ship Wakashio. Crowds of over 25,000 have been reported, while the island faces the worst environmental crisis in the island's history. Now, a pandemic update. Zambia reopened all its learning institutions following insignificant cases of the coronavirus in the country. President Edgar Lungu said the reopening would be subject to adherence to public health guidelines. Now, still on the same topic, Kenyan hospitals have reported seeing over 50% reduction in visits due to COVID-19 pandemic. A Kenyan company to bridge the gap brought about Tibu app. The smartphone app allows patients to consult a doctor online and be able to be attended to in less than 30 minutes. Now, Dr. Faji Zauna Maina, a 29-year-old hydrologist, became the first scientist from Niger to join NASA. She joined the Gravity Recovery Climate Experiment Satellite Project. Now, although based in the United States, the scientist maintains close ties to her home country through an organization that works in education and women's emancipation. The president congratulated her win. Now, Nyungwe Forest in Rwanda is being lauded for being the most expensive and protected national park. The forest is located within Rwanda's border with Burundi. Growing hostilities between the two countries has led to an increased security by the Rwandan Defense Force, who cover every meter of the forest, which spreads to more than 1,000 square kilometers. Well, that marks the end of our news. Please stay tuned because we have more in store for you.
Eradication of wild polio in Africa.
Last August, Africa achieved a major health milestone. The Africa Regional Certification Commission certified the World Health Organization Africa region as wild polio-free after 4 years without a case.
Nigeria was the last African country where the disease was endemic.
Taking a break from his busy schedule of handling COVID-19 pandemic issues, the World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom could not hide his joy while declaring the end of wild polio virus in Africa.
Today, we come together to rejoice over an historic public health success, the certification of wild polio virus eradication in the African region. Since 1996, almost 9 billion polio vaccines have been delivered in Africa. Up to 1.8 million cases of wild polio have been averted, and up to 180,000 lives have been saved.
To discuss the story of Africa successfully eradicating wild polio, we are joined by Dr. Vanessa Chelimo, a dermatologist and a venerology officer, and George Akendo, a public health advocate. Well, thanks a lot for your time. Let's start off with Dr. Vanessa Chelimo. Dr. Vanessa, how was Africa able to achieve this major milestone of eradicating wild polio virus?
Africa has been able to take care of eradicate polio has been through vaccinations. They have done a lot of vaccinations for millions of children in the world, in Africa generally. And so we've been able to reach a lot of children through campaigns that have been done, campaigns of door-to-door vaccinations that have been offered to children. Then we've also done a lot of surveillance. There has been a lot of surveillance for polio just to detect any lingering.
Thanks for that, Dr. Vanessa.
And now I'd like to thank George Akendo for sharing his time and views with us and ask him what measures are needed to ensure that there is no future outbreak of wild polio in Africa.
Yes, one is that we need to continue with the effort of immunization coverage, making sure that all the children who are under immunizable age, they all get all the doses of polio vaccine. Secondly, we must upscale hygiene and sanitation activities. So in household levels and villages, that is one.
George Akendo, public health advocate.
While wild polio virus eradication is a remarkable milestone, Africa must not become complacent. A WHO official in Borno, Nigeria, has warned of consequences if there are no efforts to sustain this new achievement in Africa.
We still need to maintain the tempo so that we don't have importation. Wild polio virus is still in Afghanistan, it's still in Pakistan. There's movement every day. If we don't tighten our belts or redouble our efforts, we can have importation, and then we start from square one again.
What measures are needed to ensure that there is no future outbreak of polio?
Yes, one is that we need to continue with the effort of immunization coverage, making sure that all the children who are under immunizable age, they all get all the doses of polio vaccine. Secondly, we must upscale hygiene and sanitation activities. So in household levels and villages, that is one. And also continue surveillance.
This West African refugee is a pointer of some of the effective measures that led to the eradication of polio and which need to be maintained. Let's take a listen.
A lokacin da muke kauye ba mu san polio ba, ba mu san allurar rigakafi ba. Amma yanzu alhamdulillah tunda muka yi hijira muka dawo. Yau shekarar mu 6 da yin hijira na zana haifi 'ya'ya 2. Rigakafi daga ranar da na haife su a take aka sa mana allura kuma zuwa wata bayan kwana 40 mun zama karbi.
While it is good news that Africa is free of wild polio virus, the fight against polio is far from over.
Now, countries in Africa and elsewhere still have to deal with vaccine-derived poliovirus. This is one of the rare strains of poliovirus.
Now, how risky is the vaccine-derived poliovirus type 2, and what needs to be done to eliminate it?
Okay, the type 2 of polio, definitely we have 3 types, 1, 2, and 3. And okay, in Kenya, as general, we never had an incident of type 2 polio. But it is not as dangerous as such, even though the virus mutates, and that one might make it, fighting it a little bit difficult. Cases in neighboring countries. And the approach is more or less the same as the way we do other polio type 1, 2, and 3. Even though currently in a situation whereby we might get a case, we do encourage, or we are thinking of a way of introducing the IPV, the injectable polio vaccine.
Thanks for that, George. Public health advocate.
Millions of children across Africa are at the risk of other disease due to disruptions of routine immunization and other vaccination programs as a result of the lockdown to contain the spread of COVID-19. The WHO Director General expressed concern of delayed routine immunization during the COVID-19 pandemic.
WHO is deeply concerned about the impact the pandemic will have on other health services, especially for children. Children may be at relatively low risk from severe disease and death from COVID-19, but can be at high risk from other diseases that can be prevented with vaccines.
How has the COVID-19 pandemic affected polio vaccination drive in Africa? And what is being done to ensure every child is vaccinated?
Because following the COVID-19 pandemic, which we have all experienced the effects of it, we have noted a decline in the number of children seeking child welfare services, including immunization. And this, of course, has resulted in missed opportunities for vaccination against polio. And therefore, we are trying, as much as Africa is trying very much to encourage, give messages and emphasize on the importance of having children receive their routine immunization as per schedule. So we have vigorous campaigns that are continuing to encourage children to attend the child welfare clinics so that they can be able to receive immunization.
Thanks for staying with us. In this segment, we are going to look into our social media pages. On the discussion of the status of COVID-19 in Africa, we had Segun stating, "We are grateful to God that the prediction of there'll be dead bodies littered across the streets in Africa did not come to pass. Hashtag COVID-19. We also had Jami stating, "The Western people have now said that we have survived as a result of our poverty." Well, in our news on Sudan's economic emergency, we had Omar Bushman from Sudan stating, "What led to the ousting of Omar al-Bashir was the increase in the price of bread. Yes, there was many factors, but this was what made hell break loose. We are long sufferers. God reward us for it." Omar Bushman also added that not only the price of bread was increased, but the price of everything has risen. Yes, everything. Things are not just expensive, they are unaffordable. Well, that's all for this week. We would like to hear more from you, so please follow us and tag us in your posts and keep the comments coming. Till next time.
Well, the eradication of wild polio virus in Africa is a remarkable step towards a healthy Africa free of all preventable diseases.
On that note, we come to the end of this week's edition of Africa Today.
And don't forget to visit our social media pages and give us your views on this program.
On behalf of the entire Africa Today team, thanks a lot for staying tuned and goodbye.